How do you feel about killing?
I don't. It doesn't bother me.
How many people have you killed?
Approximately, we'll go with more than 100.
A world with predators and other criminals who have done some very awful things is a phenomenon which we must face. Even though most of them are now in prison, their lethality has left a remarkable impact on everyone.
Why do you want to be executed? I have to be, because I will kill again.
In today's episode, we will take a deeper look at the most lethal menace behind bars. Get ready for some chilling inmate stories and make yourself comfortable. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Starting off, we have to take a deeper look at the infamous Iceman. Richard Kuklinski, born on April 11, 1935 in Jersey City, New Jersey, became one of America's most notorious serial killers. Convicted of 5 homicides, Kuklinski earned his nickname the Iceman due to his method of freezing a victim to confuse the time of death. He claimed in interviews to have taken the lives of over 100 people, mainly as a mafia hitman.
How do you feel about killing?
I don't. It doesn't bother me.
How many people have you killed?
Approximately, we'll go with more than 100.
Kuklinski's troubled childhood, marked by extreme parental mistreatment, led to early displays of violence, such as taking the lives of neighborhood cats and committing his first homicide in his teens. After dropping out of school in 8th grade, he fell into a criminal life that included bootlegging erotic films. This venture connected him with organized crime, and he eventually became a hitman for prominent crime families like the Genovese and Gambino.
You were able to have a very long run as a successful contract killer.
His criminal career led to his arrest in 1986, following an undercover operation. Kuklinski was charged with several homicides, including that of his first victim, George Malaban, who was found in a barrel.
I shot George Malaban 5 times. It was due to business.
He was also linked to the deaths of fellow criminals and an attempted powder deal that turned fatal. Did you know that the medical examiner of Kuklinski's second victim, Louis Mazgai, found ice crystals in the tissues of the decomposed body? That's also one of the reasons why Kuklinski earned his nickname as the Iceman. In 1988, Kuklinski was convicted and received multiple life sentences, confessing to several more homicides, including the assassination of a New York City police detective.
Then I found out the next day that he was police.
While in prison, he gave numerous interviews detailing his crimes and claiming more assassinations, though many of these assertions were met with skepticism.
I killed 100 people when I was a young man. I was a person who able to hurt somebody at any given time with no remorse.
Kuklinski died in prison on March 5, 2006, leaving behind a chilling legacy and unanswered questions about the true extent of his crimes.
It's time for me to die.
Next up on our list is Jason Barnum, going by the nickname Eyeball. Known for having a tattooed right eye and additional ink on his forehead, Barnum stands out visually. However, it is his extensive criminal record that makes him a suitable character in the discussion about the most lethal menace behind bars. Barnum's criminal activities escalated in 2012 when he was involved in a serious altercation. Hiding in a hotel, he was confronted by 2 police officers. Barnum responded by opening fire, resulting in 1 officer being wounded. This violent confrontation led to his arrest and subsequent trial. In 2015, Barnum was sentenced to 22 years in prison. His convictions included attempted homicide, car theft, and burglary. During his trial, it was revealed that his crimes were partly motivated by a need to support his addiction to prohibited substances. Did you know that Barnum actually stated a controversial cause for his actions at the stand in court? I was living on the streets and I tried to get a job, but of course my beautiful face didn't allow me to do that, he said. As we continue to delve into the stories of the most lethal menace behind bars, it becomes clear that their lives are marked by a series of shocking events and severe crimes. Each story not only impacts society, but also serves as a reminder of the potential darkness within the human psyche. Next on our list is Gary Leon Ridgeway, also known as the Green River Killer. Ridgeway ranks as the second most prolific serial killer in American history. During the 1980s and 1990s, his criminal activities terrorized Washington state, where he was convicted for the homicides of at least 49 individuals, primarily targeting vulnerable teenage girls and women, many of whom were living on the streets.
She's in the car. Let's say she's always in the car, driving down the road, and first she wants to see my ID. I put my finger over my driver's license to hide my name.
Ridgeway's nickname originates from the location where the first victims were found near the Green River in Utah. His method of operation was particularly brutal. He throttled his victims using either his hands or string and disposed of their bodies in distant wooded areas across King County.
I picked her up, planning to kill her. After killing her, I left her body near the northern boundary of SeaTac Airport.
Disturbingly, Ridgeway frequently revisited the crime scenes to engage with the corpses of his victims. His killing spree, most intense between 1982 and 1984, often involved gaining his victims' trust by showing them a picture of his son before eventually taking their lives.
First, she wants to see my ID. On the opposite side was pictures. Picture of my son.
Ridgeway managed to avoid arrest for years until advancements in DNA profiling technology led to his capture on November 30th, 2001, as he left his job at a truck factory in Renton, Washington. In exchange for escaping the death penalty, he agreed to a plea deal that involved disclosing the locations of still missing victims.
And I got to thinking the families would like to know where their daughters are buried.
The deal meant a life sentence without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 480 years for tampering with evidence. Did you know that Ridgeway, during trial, stated his motive for his killing spree? Ridgeway claimed that he targeted vulnerable teenage girls and women as they were easy to pick up, and because he hated most of them. He also stated that he had intercourse with the victims after he had taken their lives. Despite his cooperation, not all homicides linked to the Green River Killer were solved.
I don't remember how I did the very first one. I just don't.
Some cases remain open, as they do not follow his usual pattern, or they lack clear evidence. Initially suspected of 49 homicides, Ridgeway later confessed his responsibility for at least 71 people's death.
Count 48 of the information charges you with the aggravated murder of an unidentified woman. Is it true?
Yes.
His admissions showed a shocking lack of care for the lives of his victims, often young women from disadvantaged backgrounds. Ridgeway's time in prison has included stays in solitary confinement and a move to a high-security federal prison in Colorado due to concerns for public safety, although he was later transferred back to Washington to help with ongoing investigations. His case is one of the most disturbing stories in American crime history, which makes him suitable for being the most lethal menace behind bars.
Guilty, guilty, guilty.
Fourth on our list is Joseph James DeAngelo, also known as the Golden State Killer. DeAngelo's crimes had a profound impact on communities across California from 1974 to 1986. His criminal activities included 13 homicides, over 50 sexual misconducts, and around 120 burglaries. He even taunted his victims over the phone. Leaving a trail of fear and devastation. DeAngelo's ability to evade capture for decades is particularly concerning. The case went cold after 1986, leaving law enforcement and the public longing for closure. However, justice was eventually served in 2018 when advancements in DNA profiling technology led to DeAngelo's arrest at the age of 72. Did you know that DeAngelo was once a police officer in the 1970s? He misused his knowledge and authority, betraying the community he was supposed to protect. His guilty plea in 2020 to 13 counts of first-degree homicide and 13 counts of abducting confirmed the immense range of his guilt. The exposure to the extent of his crimes were shocking to the American population, including his ex-wife.
To be engaged to him ever is a regret I'll always have.
DeAngelo's sentencing to life in prison without the possibility of parole brought some peace to the victims and their families, knowing that he would face the consequences of his actions.
I've listened to all your statements, each one of them, and I'm really sorry. Everyone ever.
The case of Joseph James DeAngelo serves as a bleak reminder of the potential for darkness within an individual, leaving an unforgettable mark on the families he terrorized and questioning the misuse of law enforcement by authorities. Up next, we've got Edmund Kemper, also known as the Co-Ed Killer. Born on December 18, 1948 in Burbank, California, Edmund Kemper showed troubling behavior from a young age. Raised by his mother, Clarnell Elizabeth Kemper, who suffered from alcoholism and possible borderline personality disorder, he grew up in an unstable environment. Clarnell demeaned Kemper's father, a World War II veteran and electrician, and extended her shifting behavior toward Kemper. In a challenging home, Kemper developed dark fantasies.
It started with surrogates at a non-human level.
He offered the heads of his sister's dolls and forced them into playing morbid games like electric chair and gas chamber.
Small animals, insects, animals, and then finally people.
His violent tendencies escalated, leading to him taking the lives of family cats, foreshadowing later crimes. After his father left, his mother's hostility increased, leading her to banish Kemper to the basement. The verbal mistreatment he endured fueled his darker side. At the age of just 14, Kemper fled his mother's oppressive home to live with his father, only to find him remarried and unwelcoming. Sent to live with his grandparents, he soon faced similar instability.
A month later, I'm up living with my grandparents in the mountains, and 10 months later, I murdered them.
He shot both grandparents during an argument at 15, taking the life of his grandmother to see what it felt like, and his grandfather to prevent him from discovering the homicide.
I knew anybody that came up there and gave me a funny look or a fishy eye or a quizzical look, I'd have blown their brains out thinking they were coming to get me. And if it had been in a city, I would have been a mass murderer at age 15. I would have killed until they gunned me down.
After the homicides, Kemper confessed and was institutionalized at a Atascadero State Hospital, diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and noted for his high IQ. Despite his history, he was released on his 21st birthday in 1969 and moved back in with his mother, employed at the University of California in Santa Cruz. He tried to rehabilitate himself back into society, but his homicidal urges continued. After being rejected as a state trooper, he found work at the Department of Transportation and began picking up female hitchhikers, unable to conceal his darker desires.
Now, would you get in the car with this man? Huh?
Kemper's violence peaked in April 1973 when he took the life of his own mother and engaged in horrific acts with her severed head.
Saying I'd wanted to kill my mother since I was 8 years old, and I'm not proud of that.
He then turned to his mother's best friend, took her life as well, stole her car, and fled to Colorado. When Kemper found out that the homicides had not attracted immediate attention, he turned himself in.
I am a human being, and I killed human beings.
Kemper confessed that the homicides served no purpose for him, and he could no longer handle the emotional burden.
This is me back then, in 1972 and 73, unable to live with the fact that I just stabbed to death and cut the throat of an innocent young woman. This gotta stop. And I let them out. I would have gotten away with those two being murdered.
Convicted of 8 counts of first-degree homicide, Kemper had tried to off himself twice and requested the death penalty, but received 7 contemporary life sentences. Today, at 74 years old, he resides in a California medical facility. Now, before we move on to the next contestant for the most lethal menace behind bars, did you know that Kemper was physiologically profiled in the late 70s and early 80s, discovering his IQ was at a shocking 145? This leaves him as one of the intelligent serial killers the world has ever seen. Well, enough about Kemper for now. Let's move on to our second last inmate, David Berkowitz, better known as the Son of Sam, who spread fear across streets in New York City in the late 1970s. His crime spree began in 1975 with the stabbing of 2 women, Donna Loria and Jody Valenti, in the Bronx, New York. Over the next 2 years, he escalated his attacks, ultimately taking the lives of 6 people and wounding 11 others. His crimes were marked by a disturbing precision, baffling the police for an extended period.
Maybe there's a part of me that wanted to stop everything, but I was just trained to be a soldier.
What enhanced Berkowitz's actions was his ridiculous correspondence with the NYPD and a journalist from the Daily News. In his letters, he referred to himself as the Son of Sam, a nickname that became responsible for all the terror in New York. The city was held in fear, haunted by the evasive nature of the killer until his capture in 1977. Upon his arrest, Berkowitz confessed to his crimes and was sentenced to 6 contemporary life sentences.
I'm doing consecutive life sentences totaling more than 300 years. I'm never getting out.
In prison, he experienced a significant transformation, adopting and worshiping Christianity while expressing remorse for his violent past.
Satan isn't killed, but Jesus Christ gives life. And all that darkness, all that confusion, and all that chaos, God's hands of love reached out to me and picked me up.
Despite this change, the scars of his actions are unforgettable, leaving a lasting impact on the city and the victims of his violence. Did you know that Berkowitz is claimed to be driven by a demon he believed lived inside his neighbor's dog so that he would make himself look crazy outwardly? Berkowitz's story is a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of violence and the importance of attention for preventing such tragedies. The tale of David Berkowitz, the Son of Sam, remains a haunting chapter in the world of crime tales, which makes him suitable for being the most lethal menace behind bars. Hey, you there! Yes, you! If you've watched so far, it must mean that you're finding value in our content. If you do, consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to stay updated with our latest uploads. Your support helps us keep creating content like this. Thank you for watching. Now for the last guest in this video, we've got Nico Jenkins, also known as the Omaha Slasher. In the summer of 2013, Omaha, Nebraska became the harsh setting for a horrific series of crimes committed by Nico Jenkins. Known as the Omaha Slasher and driven by a disturbed belief system, Jenkins began a brutal killing spree that would leave a lasting scar on the city. Jenkins lured his first victim, his old cellmate, Curtis Bradford, to a hidden spot and shot him, initiating a terrifying wave of violence.
Make him overstate the situation with Mr. Bradford. That was my little homie, man.
Over the next 10 days, Jenkins took the lives of several more people, each assassination more horrifying than the last, as part of what he claimed were ritualistic sacrifices to an ancient Egyptian god he believed he served.
They praise what? Oh my God, your God.
Among his victims was Andrea Kruger, a mother of 3 whom Jenkins cold-bloodedly shot with a shotgun as she was returning home from work.
I got you. That's impossible. In Andrea Kruger's car. That's impossible.
His random and ruthless attacks left the community shaken and full of fear about who might be next. Jenkins's spree ended with the homicide of Jorge Cajiga Ruiz, a newcomer to Omaha whose life was tragically cut short. When Jenkins was finally caught, his trial became a major focus nationwide.
He crossed racial, gender, and city boundaries.
In court, he showed no remorse, showing no consideration to the victims' families, while acting unpredictably. He tried to represent himself, adding drama to the proceedings. Ultimately, Jenkins was found guilty on multiple counts of first-degree homicide and sentenced to 450 years in prison.
The defendant's commission of these 4 murders over a 10-day period is one of the worst killing sprees in history. The death penalty is appropriate, should be, and is hereby given for each of the 4 murders by the defendant.
Nico Jenkins grew up surrounded by crime, with family members heavily involved in illegal activities. Growing up in Omaha's rough neighborhoods without good role models or guidance significantly influenced his path towards crime. His mother and sister, Lori and Erica Jenkins, have both been convicted of accessory to homicide. Jenkins's belief that he was carrying out the will of a supernatural power only made his violent actions worse, pushing him deeper into harmful behavior.
Something went wrong. Was it just supposed to be like you said earlier, a carjacking?
Did you know that Jenkins served time earlier in his life? He entered jail at the age of just 15 years for carjacking. Jenkins's horrific crimes and the fear they caused both in the community and in prison highlights the severe effects of his actions. He is now one of the most lethal menaces behind bars, a reputation that makes other prisoners and even guards cautious around him. Jenkins' story is a clear example of how mental instability, a criminal childhood, and radical beliefs can have serious consequences. Now, with these cases in mind, which menace do you think is the most lethal one? Comment down below. Thank you for watching all the way till the end. For more true crime deep dives, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and click on the card shown on your screen right now.